hungry, I just always got my plate full. Try to digest all the topics that I'm spitting. You need to sit back and actually take the time to listen. We living in a new age where mind states are feeble. Kids' attention spans are shorter than Danny DeVito. My beat stole, beat banging, be about my business. Bass stays knocking like a Jehovah Witness. Leave them scattering when chattering. The gang of rhyme patterns. I ain't worth challenging. You all need some aspirin. Aspiring to be me, no empires to feed. Just a chosen few that's flowing through. Firing up the weed. Jesus, crazy what the world coming to. I'm here to live it, make music. For y'all is just hanging on a gimmick, huh? Wait a minute, man. Don't get me confused with none of these newbie-ass rappers, man. I know the game be feeling fucked up, but I've been making beats since 95, regardless if I had the right promotion or not. Word up. Hey, yo, I ain't always humble. I ain't always intense. I've had my good and bad days like anyone else, more or less. Probably a lot more than less, or the more of it in a sense. Feel blessed, so I just move forward through the stress. But don't smoke stress. Smoke the bombest weed you ever seen. Cannabis club category, certified Cali green. Type of bomb that I keep up in my sack. They give a lot of cats anxiety attacks. There's no denying the facts. But enough about the weed, though. I keep it on a need-to-know basis. It's time for me to cut to the chase quick. So download the free LP. Spread it to your friends and family. Even to the little haters mad at me. I got 2 official LPs coming after these. So far I'm grateful for the love that's coming back to me. Truly appreciate the support, especially my peeps that had my back when I was going in and out of court. But of course a shout out to all my people. Kept the game alive instead of killing it. Selling out with weak flows, my crew. Anyone that gave an honest point of view. Much respect besides me, man. I do this shit for you, yeah, for you.
Oop, nope. Maybe now? Heyo. What is going on, dudes? Sorry about the delay. Windows was deciding to be a pain in the ass, basically. What can you do? You know, you win some, you lose some with Windows, right? How is everybody doing? What is going on? We got Jafar in the chat. We got Ian in there. What's going on? What's going on? Thank you guys for being here. Getting myself kind of organized. Because I had everything organized and then Windows said no. Priorities. Happy quarantine, everybody. Get these things going. There we go. Oh, life is looking better by the moment, is it not? Milan, what's going on, man? Happy to have you here. Paolo, what's going on? Okay. I feel like that's a dangerous place to put that. Okay. So thank you guys for all being here. I hope everyone's doing well and enjoying their Thursday. Ian, yes you do. Get it together, my friend. Lunchtime beers. I will have you know, have to go out and buy some like session beers because the normal 7 and 8%ers that are stocked in the fridge, those might not always be the best choice for lunchtime, especially when you have things to do. So we have something that we can enjoy and stay productive with afterwards. All right, so hopefully there's already tunes. Look, I had tunes playing before I even started today. Steps in the right direction. Yesterday was fun. That was a fun little challenge. I don't know if you guys checked Facebook or Instagram. I ended up watching the 3DS London meetup for a while. There were some really cool presentations and some interesting stuff being talked about. So I did that, and then and while I was doing that, I just kind of doodled along in that drawing, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I mean, it could be better, it could be worse, but it was kind of fun. So hope you guys like that, and that there's something to learn in that from you. This morning I had some solo dad time while the missus was on a conference call for her work. And I kind of slept in because I was up late working. And so now I don't really have anything planned for today, but we also need to figure out what we're going to do next. And so I feel like maybe today is going to be a thumbnail day. I don't know why I said maybe. Today is going to be a thumbnail day. and try to come up with some idea that we're going to continue working on when I don't have anything else planned. So yeah, let's jump into some thumbnails and see if we can come up with an idea. All right, oops. Come on, Wacom, don't let me down again. I think that's the one. That is the one. We have my trusty thumbnail page loaded up. Looking at squares again, because let's be honest, this is really only going to live on Instagram, at least the final image. So we'll just stick with squares. What do I want to work on today? I'm thinking I enjoyed doing that kind of mildly abstractish kind of composition yesterday. And I feel like I've been doing a lot of like big kind of city or worldscapes or landscapes recently. So maybe we'll do something a bit more on the intimate side. I don't know. I'm really kind of firing from the hip on this one. If you guys have any ideas or anything you'd like to see, definitely let me know. But yeah, I'm thinking we do something kind of smaller, maybe a little bit abstract. Not abstract, but like the composition yesterday was obviously like a very simple one, which I think is always good practice. Simpler compositions can be trickier, and I just feel like I haven't really done many lately. So maybe we'll do something like that. I also feel like that might be good for a live stream, because it won't be like, hey, we're going to move around a bunch of buildings and scatter a gazillion trees and model cliffs and whatnot. So let's do a little sketching. Let's see, what do we want to do? As is my normal case with thumbnailing, since I don't really have an idea, I'm just gonna start drawing. Tassos. I mean, maybe this will end up having a little world creator in it, or maybe one day, if you guys are down for it, we just hop into World Creator and see what I make, and then make an image from whatever comes from it, which I feel like is the first way to get to know a software. I am kind of thinking of like some trees. I don't know why I've been thinking about trees recently, but I have been thinking about trees, and so maybe we'll just start doodling some trees. Yeah, whenever I try to learn a new piece of software, there's kind of like, assuming I'm not learning it specific with like a production need for something, I generally will like play around in it, which I've done a little bit in World Creator, and I haven't done it all with Gaia, I think Gaia, with Gaia yet. But I generally like start by just playing around and kind of moving sliders or seeing what it kind of wants to do naturally, just to kind of familiarize myself. And then the second step, and definitely the more important of the two steps, is to go in and start thinking about trying to do something with intent, right? Because you can sit in these softwares and play forever and never really have any control over it, because you're kind of always at the whim of the software. So one of the things that I definitely am a big believer in and try to do myself is like, I have an idea in my head, a very specific thing that I want to do, and I'm going to go in and wrestle with the program until I get it to do what I want it to do. And I feel like that would be a good task for both of those softwares, but I don't really feel like I've played with them enough to start things yet. So maybe we'll do that. That could be fun. I think that's kind of a good idea. I think it might be fun to maybe one day we go in and we play around in like, let's say World Creator first, play around for an hour, try to come up with something cool, not anything specific, just play with it. And then the next day we try to make a little sketch with that, with whatever the output is of that. And then we can do the same thing for Gaia, and I can kind of make a decision on which one I actually want to really dive into. I mean, maybe it's both. Who knows? Do not know at this point. So that could be cool. Jafar, we are all at home missing the nature. I get to take my dog for a walk every day. And we have a park next door, so we generally walk through the park. So at least I get a little bit of something. But yeah, we're all kind of stuck in here. I don't know who here saw my last thumbnailing live stream, but you can see that. Oop, sirens. Heyo. Hope everybody's okay. Sirens. I wonder if you guys can hear that. Tell me if you guys can hear the sirens. I'm curious. I would guess you could, because it seems pretty loud. Anyways, in the last time we were thumbnailing, I kind of said the same thing, which is that usually when I start with these, especially when I don't have like an idea in my head already, the first 1, 2, 3, or 4 tend to be these kind of like, oh, look, Mike, you drew some trees. Fantastic. There's really nothing interesting about this. And usually it's kind of how the first 1, 2, or couples turn out. But it's important, I think, still to do them. You're kind of, like I said before, getting your head and your hand like kind of linked together and getting your brain kind of starting to process on things. So this is not an image that we were going to try to make, but it's the start to kind of get things rolling. I remember seeing once somewhere on YouTube a video that just talked about like all the concept artists, I want to say at Pixar, and kind of like what their like getting started routine is, because most of them start the day with, you know, half an hour of just like free sketching, just to kind of get everything locked in and going. And that's kind of, I mean, I wish I had the time to just sit and draw all day. I feel like we'd see some improvements in my scribbles. But and who knows? This quarantine goes on long enough and enough projects get canceled. Maybe I will have time just to draw all day. But yeah, so we just got like one little sketch to kind of say like, okay, there's a tree. I'm thinking that we'll have some kind of foresty scene. And I'm also thinking, remember the last image I said that I felt like the fog didn't really come together in the way that I wanted it to? For that kind of like dusk, misty mood. So I'm kind of starting to think of it in that frame of mind. How are we going to make something kind of in that direction, right, mood-wise? Because it'll give us another opportunity, it'll give me another opportunity to try to do a better job of that. So yeah. Tassos, it does seem that way. Literally, I played with it for like an hour. And actually, I can show you the one thing that I've made with it. I made these, and then I did some painting over for fun. Is that one painted over? Oh, here we go. Whoops, wrong button. Where did it start? Oh, these are way out of order. Yeah, I made this guy with it in like an hour, just kind of playing. And this was just a quick render out of 3ds Max and F-Storm. And then I kind of started painting that way. And I don't know why these didn't open in order. Is that where I ended? And then I did this, and then I cropped it. And I ended with something like that, which was kind of fun. But again, like everything you're seeing here, like I just kind of happened upon that. Move that out of the way. So yeah, that might be fun. Let's see, we got a question from Massimiliano. I love your name, my friend. How can I improve my skill on understanding lights? Because the suggestions that you gave me on my sketch were amazing. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like that. My skill share. That's old. And I think there's 2 of them. And I think I still make like 15 or 20 bucks a month from those, which I always kind of chuckle when they show up in my PayPal account. But yeah, those were right when I got out of architecture school. Your skill in understanding lights. I think that there are kind of 2 things to that question when it comes to lighting in 3D. And one is like the technical side. One is the technical side of figuring out how to do things. But honestly, there are a lot of tutorials for that. And I'm sure that you can find plenty of like, here's how to set up this kind of light or this kind of light. The harder thing to learn that takes, I think, more time and is not nearly as straightforward is understanding the point of lighting. Why you want to use lighting for specific reasons. And then how that lighting would actually look. Setting it up from a technical side is usually actually pretty simple. Once you've had like a little bit of a kind of understanding of it. And for how to kind of develop a sense of lighting, one of the things that's always good to do is to do meaningful studies of lighting. These were paintings, right? Like obviously I'm like directly copying scenes from Blade Runner here, and I think actually one of these I think is actually somebody else's interpretation of Blade Runner. I'm not sure which one. And I'm basically just copying it, but I'm not copying it by like tracing it. I'm copying it by doing it again. Let's find another one. Here's one doing the same thing with the Sparth drawing or painting. I wasn't studying them specifically for lighting. I was more thinking about painting technique when I was doing them. But when you redraw something or try to recreate it in 3D, first off, be careful with what you post of that stuff. Like those images you just saw, what I made isn't really mine, right? Those were made to for me to study something. So just, don't copy somebody else's work and then post it as though it's your own. I generally don't post that stuff like at all. Because I'm just doing them to kind of sharpen my own skills. In the first place, the point is not to make something that's worth sharing. And be like, there's not that much I think for anyone else to glean from it. Except that it's worth practicing stuff. But when you remake something that you like, you understand it better. One thing I did, let me pull up. One thing that I did end up posting, I don't know if on my art station I posted the originals to it. Hugh Ferris is like the godfather of architectural visualization. And so these are 3 quick 3D studies that I made a while ago. But if we look up Hugh Ferris, we could find like the exact images that I was, right? We see this image here. Is that up on the screen? That one is quite obviously this one, right? And you can do that for all 3 of these. These were done back in the, I think, 20s-ish, maybe a little bit later. And I recreated them, because I love them. He did his in like these big charcoal and mixed media drawings. And I wanted to try and get like a little bit of that sense of like, there's a looseness to that, which I really like, because I think it lets the viewer get into, kind of inhabit the drawing more. And so I wanted to see if I could do that in 3D, right? Because even if it's a sketch, it still has a tendency to feel pixel perfect, right? Because of how render engines work. And so I wanted to see if I could kind of capture a little bit of that, while at the same time kind of studying his composition and lighting. Because his lighting is this kind of like very cinematic, not realistic lighting. And they weren't new to me as far as images go. I've been looking at them for years. And I felt like I had kind of understood what they were doing. I felt like I knew what they were doing from a lighting standpoint, but after having like tried to actually recreate it, to some degree, I only spent a couple hours on them, on each one. I definitely understood it a lot more, right? As far as like how he was using lights, and obviously he was imagining them and drawing them, but it's really no different for us. And so yeah, studying films and like people that do lighting really well in a way that you want to learn is a great way. But just like looking at it and saying, I wish I could make that image, isn't gonna, teach you that much. Trying to really kind of get into it and break it down and figure it out will. I'm kind of thinking of this one. I might draw a little bit of light into this one. With a soft brush. I'm thinking of this as like, what if we had light coming in from like the left, from the right, like artificial light that's kind of silhouetting all of these trees, and then we'd have like fog coming through them. So yeah, like I look at this photographer Todd Hido a lot. I really like his sense of light in his work, and another guy named Gregory Crutzen. I've mentioned him before, and Todd Hido. Richard Tushman, Tuschman, and try to kind of understand what they're doing. But again, like, until you really sit down and start to work on it, you're more enjoying his work than learning from it. I would argue. Yes, Massimiliano. The secret is easy. Lots and lots of practice, but deliberate practice, right? If you just practice and you just do the things that you're comfortable with, you'll get better, but pretty slowly. Ian, who's in the chat, thank you for stopping by, Ian. Ian and I kind of became aware of each other through Kit Bash when I was the head of 3D there, and he was starting on kind of his matte painting journey. And it's been really cool watching his work develop. And I think he's a great example of practicing with an intent. I'm trying to work on a skill outside of my comfort zone to get better at it. And so I like, whenever I'm trying to get better, I generally don't have any plan on like actually releasing those images. One of the things that I think you have to be careful of is kind of this trap that I think I see some artists fall into, which is doing the everydays. And I think anyone who's doing everydays, I have a ton of respect for them, because that's a lot of work and a lot of discipline. And you're definitely going to learn efficiency from doing that, which is a great thing. But what you run the risk, in my opinion, of staying safe all of the time, right? Because you know you're going to share this with the world, and you don't want to share anything that's that bad. And you want to be free to make mistakes. That's part of learning. So, I personally am not comfortable sharing work that I'm very much not proud of. These live streams are kind of like a little exercise for me of like, I'm not great at drawing, and I'm drawing in front of you guys right now. It's probably good for me. But I'm still practicing every day, doing work that I'm not going to show anybody at any point. Because I want to be able to just spend my time on the skill I'm trying to learn, so I don't want to worry about setting up a scene and finishing a scene, making sure it looks good enough to show other people. If I'm working on a specific skill set, I want all of my time in that like hour of practice that I set up a day to be practice time, not making things pretty or writing, a description or worrying about hashtags or whether so and so is going to like it or whatever else. That is all cutting into practice time where you're not getting any better. Maybe you're getting better at social media, but not at art. So allow yourself to make mistakes, and if you're comfortable showing your mistakes to the world, A, I applaud you, and B, then probably ignore all of that advice. But I think for most artists, they would do better off if they spent their time doing dailies, just practicing on stuff you're going to throw away, because that's where you're really going to feel free to just make mistakes, and you'll learn in those mistakes. There you go, Ian. That's exactly right. And like, there are definitely some things that you guys have seen on my Instagram or Facebook or ArtStation or whatever that started out as just like an idea of practice that happened to turn out good enough that I'm like, oh, I'm pretty excited about how this turned out. I'm going to share this. But that's never the intention with practice and starting with practice. For me, at least. The idea of practice is to get better so that you can make things you want to share, right? Let's see, Jafar, it would be interesting to hear your thoughts on current financial crisis that we are all going through. Do you think it will have a heavy impact on CGI industry? I don't want to go fully into the COVID thing. There are a lot of people smarter than I am that now know more about what is going on, that have more experience in business than I do, that probably have more valuable things to say. One of the ideas of like starting these live streams, to be honest, was so that, hopefully some folks would enjoy it and have like an hour or so where they could think about something besides all the news. But my kind of overarching picture is that it's going to be rough for a while. Especially if you have a staff or if you don't have a decent amount of cash in reserve. I think it's going to be real tough, and my heart and sympathies go out to you. But I do believe very, very firmly that we're going to get through this, right? Like, COVID's not the thing that's going to end humanity or civilization as we know it. I remind myself of that every single day. People in the past have had to deal with worse things than what we're dealing with right now, and they've risen to the occasion. And I do believe that we're going to, as long as we can keep a positive attitude for it. Hence the name of this, Wartime Optimism. We're going to make it. I really do believe that. As far as its effect on the CG industry, or at least the only part of the CG industry I think that I'm really qualified to talk about is probably ArcViz from a business perspective. And it's going to be a while, I think, before like developers, and as a result of developers, architects, are comfortable spending money in general, right? I've been listening to a lot of industry talks that have been aired on Zoom with real estate developers and brokers and the like in the U.S. And some of them have projects that they're like, hey, we're going to release a project in August or September, and we're probably not now. Not because we can't, but because no one's buying luxury real estate right now, which is kind of where most of my professional work tends to live. And so, as a result of that, they're going to sit on it until they think that they can sell it, right? And that's going to have a rippling effect of new projects getting started and definitely marketing images being made. And I think it's going to have some like long-term slowdowns within the industry of ArcViz. At the same time, I don't work in like VFX or concept or film or any of that kind of stuff or motion graphics. But like right now, there's a reason why all the late night shows are making stuff from home, right? If you look at like social media and YouTube and all of that as like the supply and demand is attention, right? They're marketing and attention. The attention supply just got a big boost from, everyone being in quarantine. And so if you can make cool graphics or animated shorts or anything like that, like now's probably a good time to be releasing that into the world. I do also think that some of the kind of Ready Player One type of stuff of having live, having like virtual meetings is probably going to start speeding up kind of the development of more need for the 3D work that's eventually going to go into these VR and AR pipelines. So I don't think it's all bad. I think that this is probably going to open up a few new avenues. But I think it's going to be tough for a while. The CG industry as a whole is one that, does frequently get, taken advantage of from a production side of things. If you think about the Lion movie, that I think, what was it, Rhythm and Hughes did it, and they won an Oscar for it. I'm completely blanking on the name of the film, but they won an Oscar in the same year they had to go bankrupt for basically completing the project. And so I'm going to guess that there's some struggling going on there. But like I said, I think we'll get through it. And that's kind of about, I know I can't do much about things, and I can't do much about like my projects the projects that I had upcoming that have been canceled or put on hold. And so I'm just trying to stay positive and stay productive, and the projects that I do still have ongoing, I'm trying to do an amazing job on, because those are clients that are still paying me, and historically all of my works come from past clients or referrals from past clients. So I'm trying to kind of mentally just keep myself in a place of we're going to get through this. This isn't going to kill us all. It's going to be tough. Be empathetic to those that are really struggling, and just kind of buckle up and try not to let it consume me. That's kind of my ethos on it. But I don't really have any more insight, and I would be wary of anyone who says they have a ton more insight. There are definitely some with more than I have, but by that same token, the last time the world went through something like this was back in the teens, the Spanish flu. So there's no one really alive that's like, this is how this is going to play and this is how it's going to go, because we just don't know. The world's changed since then. No one's gone through this, so we're all in this together, which I think is another thing that's worth trying to remember, and keep at the forefront of your mind. Life of Pi, thank you, Ian. Yeah, the absolutely sad. That was the same time I think that all of the green profile pictures for supporting the VFX industry was going out, and I think it was because of that. So yeah, I mean, like, they're not rolling in cash to begin with, which means it's hard to have a company that has the cash reserves to keep people employed and keep people working going through it. And it also means that on priority, they're probably getting cut from a lot of projects, at least their budgets or their role. Let's see. I haven't really been paying attention to you guys. I'm sorry. Well, I've been handled that. Yeah, social media. I still don't like putting out any work that I'm not proud of. Pedro, what's going on, man? Happy to have you here. I'm doing great, man. I'm doodling. How much happier can I get? I'm doodling trees of all things. 'Cause why not? I think that it'd be fun to do like a tree image. Maybe no buildings, but maybe a street light of some sort. Let's keep thinking about it. Jafar, no need to apologize at all. It's something that's on everybody's mind. I just don't think that I'm qualified to really give any more opinions than I just gave. But, you know, I'm doing these live streams because of what's going on. And I'm hoping, you know, that it's worth something to some of you guys. And that maybe you learn a little bit of something. Maybe. I mean, let's look at who you're listening to here. But at least getting a break from, you know, the kind of constant news about COVID. To everyone that's struggling and everything else, like, honestly, thinking about you guys all the time. It's tough. But we're going to get through this. Definitely a perfect time to level up. Oh, thank you, Pedro. I appreciate that. And yeah, you know, I feel like right now, until we know more, until more things kind of come out, all we can do is sit and wait and see what happens, right? Until we know more. Stay positive in the meantime. You know, Pedro, you guys are doing more and more live streams, which I think is awesome because you guys make such cool, beautiful work. And I love the fact, Ian, I don't know if you guys look at any of Pedro's stuff, but, you know, they do arc viz in a very kind of VFX cinematic style and method, which is one of my favorite things to see. And you guys are producing more and more, and I think that that's, you know, good for you guys, but also good for the community as a whole. Because I think that, you know, there's plenty of reasons to be bummed out or stressed right now, and so what I think we as artists need to be doing is trying to give people reasons to maybe not be quite as bummed out. So yeah, I think it's freaking rad. Thanks, bud. Big hugs indeed. Hugs and kisses from this side, bud. Hugs and kisses. That's what we got going on. Pedro, let me take a break here. I don't think that YouTube lets you guys post things into the chat. But I think, or post links into the chat, but I think I'm allowed to post links into the chat. And so I think, yeah, let's see if I'm allowed. There you go. Not until I'm done. But everyone should go to that link and check out the amazing, beautiful work there. As opposed to me, who just kind of gets on here and figures it out as I go along. They actually seem to put some thought and care into their production and videos. So they're awesome. Definitely check them out. Oh, and now that's playing in the background. I think calling this art might be a little bit of a stretch, but it's the foundations of it, right? This is kind of like the thing I got kind of thinking in this drawing, even though I don't like that the tree is now right in the middle. Is like, you know, some kind of desolate, kind of Midwest in the U.S. kind of countryside with like a barn house sitting over here somewhere. Maybe that would have a light on it. Yeah, kind of moving away from the simple idea that I first came with, but that's the idea of thumbnailing, is to figure out, generate ideas, right? Let's keep thinking here. If I was going to do that, let's see how we'd kind of get to that point. I think I ask this question every time I end up drawing in front of anyone, which is, of you 3D artists out there, I'd love to know who's actually using any type of like 2D concepting. It does seem like it's becoming a little bit more popular, but it's still not used nearly as much as I think it could be used. What if we had, you know, I think the thing that got me like the most excited in that little sketch was the idea of having some telephone lines. Lines and cables are always fun in 3D. Always fun. And this kind of has like, at least in the way that like I'm imagining how this image would go if I made this one kind of has some Todd Hido vibes, who I mentioned earlier, and is just one of my favorite photographers. He's got some really, really beautiful stuff, and he's definitely one of the photographers that I would classify as painterly, and I would love to get the kind of like texture and feel of his images into my own work. I feel like CG, when it goes wrong, feels very, very sterile. When it goes well, it looks like a photograph. And when it goes really well, it's photorealistic, but still feels very painterly. And he's like my favorite from a photographer standpoint of that style. I feel like this composition would want to be a horizontal one. This maybe comes down to there. Maybe this road stays out here. We'd have a little drive of some sort. Kind of like the house is kind of crammed over to the edge for this. Let's go ahead. Let's try that horizontally. Chop chop. It will be fun. That would be awesome, Pedro. And I'm enjoying chatting with you. I've sent a couple of those the Facebook voice messages, and I'm still just confused why that hasn't caught on in the US. It's so much better than texting. And having to type messages. Just simple voice note. It's not actually a call. You get to hear somebody's voice. Thank you for inspiring me to try those more. Tassos, we will do what we can. The photographer, Todd Hido. Check his work out. It's beautiful. So let's see what happens if we go with this with like a wide kind of angle. And I still like the idea of keeping the house way off to the side. Oh, that's beautifully drawn, Michael. Probably work on my perspective drawing skills. Let's go all the way off the page, and let's keep it in frame so that we're not confused about what is and is not in there. So then we'd have kind of want it to cross over the road, but now with this composition, if we crossed over the road, we'd be putting a telephone pole there, and I think we want to put a telephone pole here, so we're going to go put it over here. So maybe that would go somewhere in here. Boop-doo. And then this would kind of change angles a bit. But then it kind of would come off the page. Yeah, let's keep doodling and see. I'm not sure how to solve the problem that got presented by changing the perspective in this way. And I'm definitely limited by my drawing skills, that's why what I've been spending most of my time working on. Maybe that actually is cool. And then this would be going down to another one here. And then maybe, as opposed to going off, maybe we see this road. We don't see the road turn, but we see these guys turn. That could be cool. This is like a very sparse and kind of empty composition, which I like. It's also like very cinematic in format, which is kind of fun, and I don't do a lot of things that are super wide. Clients tend to want things that will fit into, you know, both their website and Instagram, social media, and everything else. So even when I'm not working in squares, which I feel like I'm doing more and more of these days, I'm still working so that you can get a square or close to square crop out of it. Let's maybe take this idea. What time is it? Almost 2. Nope. No, clear. Let's take this. I'm going to pull this down. And let's fill this guy. And let's maybe see if I can kind of paint the idea in my head. This is definitely something that I'm trying to work more and more on, because I think it will be valuable. I'm pretty comfortable like communicating with myself in these sketches. Like in my head, I already have an idea of what this image would be, and that whenever I do like workshops with students, most 3D artists that I've run into feel very uncomfortable drawing out an idea. And as long as you can communicate with yourself, give your mind like its own 2D feedback as opposed to just trying to imagine things abstractly, that's all that matters as far as it being an effective tool, in my opinion. That being said, so like a lot of times these look better than the sketches I was doing a month ago. And if you look back a year ago, they're like scribbles that like very loosely suggest what I'm going to do. And there's still, I think, a ton of value to that. So if you can't draw at all, or you draw kind of like I do, it's still an amazing tool. But one of the things that I've been kind of working on, thinking about lately, is that I feel like it would be a more powerful tool if I was able to like do a little bit better of a job in like getting lighting ideas across. I need to redraw this. I don't like where the peak of this house and this foreground telephone pole kind of come together at the same spot, which is what I'm trying to kind of place again. And again, this would be an easy thing to kind of figure out in 3D and not have to worry about it too much here. But again, the goal is to be improving as much as possible. So let's just kind of get something going on here. A little door, maybe a windows. Looks like a little smiley face. Fantastic. And then let's maybe go in and try and paint a little bit of light into this. Or at least kind of how I'm imagining it. And we are going to clip that. And so I have the kind of same basic idea as far as like mood kind of goes from the last one, which is that like it's a look dusky time and we're gonna have some lights in here. And I kind of want it to be like big and sparse and moody. So we'd have a road of some sort. I'm missing chats. Da, da, da. Thank you, Tassos. Oh, what's going on? Andrew, right? I think it's Andrew. So I'm kind of thinking we would have, you can go in and do this without curves, but I kind of want to keep the line work in right now. And so just by doing it with curves, we get that naturally. If you're wondering why I'm painting into a curves layer. So like I don't have to worry about painting a dark color and erasing that. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat in Photoshop. And the more you know, the better. So I'm kind of thinking it like this. And now let's go in, and now I'm thinking maybe we have like a little bit of like a glimmer of a, why does that not seem as bright as I thought it was going to? A little bit of like a glimmer along the horizon over here. Just a hair. And then now we're gonna start kind of painting over a bunch of stuff, and so maybe this face gets just a little bit of light on it, but this is already too bright. And then we'd have just a little bit of kind of highlights on this kind of hill that it's sitting on. And then maybe we have an actual like lamppost here. One of the things, so now it would make sense for there to be light on this. And we get some highlights here. Well, so like one of the things that I also do a lot when I'm drawing, which is that like right now what I'm actually making marks on is kind of like completely and utterly unimportant. But what I'm thinking in my head is I'm like, I feel like that can't be the only light. And what I'm thinking is that if this was I'm not gonna try to do any color right now. Color just complicates things. But if this was like a warm, like incandescent light, what we could have is back here, kind of where the road starts to come together. What we could have is maybe we have another road coming. Maybe we have, this is a wider perspective so that this converges more. And then we could have over here, somewhere in the distance, over here we could have a street light, but then that street light's going to be competing with this line on the horizon, potentially. But we'd have like green lights over here. Or we could put like a street light in, but I don't feel like this is the type of street that would have any street lights. In my head, that doesn't seem to fit the mood. Maybe it's something we figure out in 3D. Da, da, da. Ian, it definitely kind of has those vibes, and that's definitely like the setting that I'm imagining this in. You know, and there's something I'm still quite liking about the composition, even as I look at it more. The fact that the house is cut off by the edge of the frame says that it's not about the house, right? You're implicitly saying that something's not important if you let it get cut out by the frame. Same thing with the wires, right? The wires are part of the composition, but they aren't the composition. Really, the composition is the space, is the open space in this image. I kind of like this. And I'm not entirely sure why. I'll probably have more ideas about why once I've kind of thought through it a little bit. But yeah, I think we might call that. So if we do this, we'll get to do some more scattering. We'll do a wide camera. Could be fun. And I don't like where this composition is, but I like this idea still of like light coming through the trees. Because who doesn't like light coming through the trees on a misty day, right? But this image on the bottom I think will be fun. And one of the things that we can do, which will be fun, is once we get this in 3D, we can kind of look at what would happen if we did this as a giant square, right? So that these wires, if we did this as a giant square composition, but only extended it upwards, we'd have like these wires coming way up this way, right? Something like that. That could be fun too. But I'm not going to bother drawing that because, well, we have work to do. But I do like where that ended. I think I'm going to call that a successful day of kind of coming up with an idea. Started with nothing. We got something to work on. And I think it'll be a fun image. Ian, if you look at Todd Hido's stuff, he does like a lot of like lights coming out of the window. And some of them are like very cool looking, and some of them are very kind of, I don't want to call them troubling because I think they're gorgeous, but they are slightly off-putting, let's maybe call it, in a good way, in a positive way. But I think we're going to call that there. Good Thursday. It's about 2. We will be back again tomorrow. Unless something comes up that's more fun to do, maybe we'll hop into 3D and start roughing this out. I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be a cool one, and I haven't done an image in this setting maybe ever. I think it could be the first time. Yeah, Arky9 does some really cool stuff, Ian. Really, really beautiful stuff. And their YouTube videos are great, and they kind of blend, you know, two very different, I think, disciplines within CG that are more divided than they should be. And Arky9's kind of methodology lives somewhere in the middle. And I think there's a lot to learn from him. Plus, he's the man. And one of the happiest people I've ever met, which is always nice to have more of. All right, dudes. Well, Mikola, you weren't, I thought you were hosting yesterday and you weren't. So I still don't, Mikola, I still don't know how to actually pronounce your name. And every time I try to say it, I remind myself that I don't know how to say it properly. I think it's Mikola. I'm going to go with Mikola. That's what it is from here on out, unless I'm corrected. And if I'm wrong, please correct me. All right, guys, we will see you same time tomorrow, same place, and we'll do something hopefully fun. Thank you guys for being here. Happy practicing. Stay positive. Wash your hands. Stay away from people in the real world. But try to connect with somebody digitally. It turns out virtual beers are not as awkward as they could be. So say hello to everyone. Thank you guys for being here. Very much appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing everybody soon. Later, guys. Boop. Boop.